Good evening. Welcome. Thanks for coming out. I'm going to call this regular City Commission meeting for August 22nd, 2024 to order at 6:30 p.m. Madam City Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor White,
Here.
Vice Mayor Grunder,
Here.
Commissioner Bloodsworth,
Here.
Commissioner Miller,
Here.
Commissioner Williams.
Here.
Next, we'll have our invocation offered by Pastor Jacob Newton of High Springs Church of God, followed by the pledge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Let's pray. Our kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity we have to live and to work in this beautiful city of High Springs. I pray a blessing over this City Commission meeting and over each and every one of the City Commissioners. I pray that you would grant them wisdom to make decisions to lead our city. I lift up every department leader that we have present and those that might not be, and just ask that you would help them, give them strength to lead. And we give you praise and we give you thanks for it all. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we have approval of the agenda presented tonight.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda for tonight.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve tonight's agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The agenda is approved. Next, we have approval of the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of the August 4th, 2024 Emergency Commission meeting, August 8th, 2024 Budget Workshop, and August 8th, 2024 Commission meeting.
I make a motion of the approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Consent agenda is approved, 5-0. All right, next is special presentations, an update on the wetlands construction site by the Public Works Director.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Commissioners. Give you a brief update on the wetlands and hopefully some good news. The sinkhole mitigation for cell 3, they're been completed and it's held pressure multiple times, about 12 inches of water, and there's no signs of it giving. So every cell now has been pressure tested and it looks good. The next step will be to finish cell 3, which they'll have to excavate 12 inches of dirt or so from that cell, and they will replace it with soil and bentonite mix, which will allow the water to slowly sink into the ground. And the liners for 1 and 2 have been ordered, and they'll soon be installing those. They have about 70% of the piping done. So things are looking good. They are a little bit behind, though, because of the sinkholes. Hopefully everything's good from here.
Can you clarify for me when you say cell 1 and cell 2, is that within phase 1? Are those
Yes,
subsets of
this
phase
is all
1?
phase 1.
So this
yes.
is all phase 1?
Correct. Yes,
So
ma'am.
then phase 2 hasn't been started?
No, it has
Okay,
not.
so this is all phase
Yes,
1?
we got phase 1, and then we have the sprinklers going.
Right,
Yep.
okay, okay.
Any other questions?
Yes, I want to address the schedule on the back where the inspector,
Yes.
I see where the equipment, was he actually driving a trackhoe and a dozer over that ground for stability? Is that what that is meaning?
Yes, well, they were filling it, they were dumping water into it and then pushing all the soil in it at the same time. So it hopefully get down there and fill the caverns. Mm-hmm. And then they just kept doing that, right, back and forth.
Well, that's good because that's
Yes.
so much weight being put on
Correct.
that dirt, so that's good. Thank you.
Okay?
So the area that we saw, that Mr. Marshall showed the pictures of at the last meeting.
That's
have
done.
Those have been filled in?
Yes, ma'am.
And it's held?
Yes, ma'am. Several
Okay.
times it's been pressure tested.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions, gentlemen?
No, that is just fantastic news. Thank you.
It is good news.
Any questions for from the audience?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
you.
Appreciate it. All right, next on the agenda, we have no unfinished business. We have citizens' requests and comments for issues not on the agenda. Please state your name for the record and limit your comment to 5 minutes, please.
Brian Bisher, 166th Ave, High Springs. And I was here a couple of weeks ago to talk about how Alachua, the city of Alachua, has painted a target on our backs by moving forward on a development that is going to impact probably the most significant ecological feature of Alachua County, and that's Mill Creek Sink. And the reason why it's impacting us here in High Springs is because of a geological feature called the cross-county fracture. And what that fracture does, it allows water to go from Mill Creek Sink over by Sunny's on 441 I-75 directly to Hornsby Spring. And do not, right, do not go to jail, maybe, I don't know, Pasco, I don't know. What's the monopoly analogy? I can't remember. But the main thing, I think, is that there's also a 372-acre recharge field that's planned by the Water Management District. And that is within the city of High Springs, and it's directly on the path. I mentioned a DITRACE study when I was here last time, and that DITRACE study showed that within 5 days, water entering Mill Creek Sink shows up at Hornsby. And it takes more than 150 days for it to clear, meaning it can have a substantial impact on our community. The new information that I have for you today is that the Alachua County Board of County Commissioners has drafted a letter to the city of Alachua. And that letter is stated that they're affected party and they're requesting affected party status. And that's significant because it's not just on the Terra Forest West portion of the development that's before the city of Alachua right now, but it's on the entire project, the scope of the project, which is over 378 acres. Includes, I believe, 4 housing developments plus commercial along 441. The map of that is on the back page of the handout that I brought, and that shows all of the developments within the red line boundary. And just as a reminder, on the second page is showing where the DITRACE study directs the water from Mill Creek Sink directly to Hornsby. And on the third page is where it shows how the water goes from Mill Creek Sink into the system and then exits towards, or it doesn't, it stays underground to Hornsby. And then on the next to the last page is the map that shows where that Water Management District property is located. So what I'm here tonight to do is to urge you to join Alachua County in sending a letter to the city of Alachua requesting also affected party status and perhaps even significant affected party status. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Gentlemen, do you have
Madam
any
Mayor,
comments? Yes, sir.
Can we ask questions on this matter?
Madam Attorney?
You mean of myself or of the individual?
Of the individual.
If he'd like to answer questions, I don't see why not.
So on this page right here, the blue, that's the Swanee River Water Management, right? Property.
Yes.
So are they getting involved in this? Because I know exactly where this property is at, and that's gonna go through their property. Are they okay with that water being potentially polluted, coming to High Springs like this?
My understanding with Suwannee River Management is they basically have a directive to approve growth.
So where do we as High Springs have any say or fight in this? Because looking at that diagram, what he is showing here, how that water is running, that's going right under that Swanee River Water Management property, going right through the northern part of High Springs. Just missing Bailey Estates and going to Camp Coakler or Hornsby Springs. Where do we have any fight and do anything about this? Does anybody have any
Madam Mayor,
direction?
if I may, I don't have what you all have in front of you from the county. However, if it's you all's desire this evening to instruct our office to determine how the county is approaching it and determine whether or not the city of High Springs has standing to join as an affected party, we could bring a report back to you all next meeting for you all to make a decision on, given all of the facts and pieces of how it relates to High Springs, if that's something that the commission would please.
So my understanding, Alachua County's wanting to be a part of this decision-making process? Is that what you were saying, since?
Yes, yeah, they are weighing in on the matter. And they are actually putting together a presentation for the city of Alachua. Their letter does say August 26th, which is Monday. However, it's not currently on the agenda now for Monday. And so the county is looking at towards the end of September to do that presentation. If I might add one thing, I believe that the well for Santa Fe Hills subdivision is affected. Can I ask Tom?
Santa Fe Hills, we've
Santa
got
Fe
a
Hills.
positive dye hit right there on their
Yeah.
public water supply well.
Yeah, Tom Morris was actually involved in the dye trace study.
Santa Fe Hills, is that on 235A? Is that where that's at?
So there's a potable water well at Santa Fe Hills, is what you're saying, and it was,
They have a public water supply well there.
they do. Can you come up so that we can hear you, please, sir? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the regs in a long time for the water management district, but above a certain number of people on a well, it gets declared a public water supply well.
Okay.
It has some rules that apply to it.
Do we know how deep that well is, what the well
I
construction
don't know.
details are?
Don't know.
Okay.
And you know that if you draw a line between Alachua Sink, or Mill Creek Sink they're calling it now, and Hornsby Springs, it kind of grazes that edge of High Springs like you were talking about.
Yes, sir.
Well, these caves never go in a straight line, right? They wander all over the place. And so it could be wandering kind of underneath here. And the other day, after Debbie passed, I went out and kind of scouted some things out. Alachua Sink, the Alachua Creek, Mill Creek is an intermittent stream, but it was flowing nice and strong, real brisk. And in fact, I have seen, after some floods in the past, that a huge lake forms back there. The sinkhole is like the drain in your bathtub. It can only take so much water. So if you get more runoff coming in, it'll form a big lake up there. Well, anyhow, it all ends up going into Alachua Sink. But Debbie made the river rise, and Hornsby Springs reverse flowed. If you go to their dock right now, there's tree limbs and all kinds of stuff where the diving board is, right? So you got water coming upstream into Hornsby Springs from the Santa Fe River, and water coming down Springs. That water has got to go somewhere, so it's going to be squishing out sideways in the aquifer. And who knows, gosh, how far that could go. Up on the Alapaha River, Jennings and there's a couple towns up there that they get brown water in their wells 6 miles away from the river during these flood events. So I would love to see some sort of a survey on all the wells in this part of this county. Yeah.
Well, y'all may remember a couple of years ago when they were digging that retention pond behind Sonny's, that track hoe was in there, and it flooded that track hoe.
Ah, okay.
Just a couple of years ago when we had partial rain and part of a hurricane.
Yeah.
I mean, it ruined that guy's equipment because nobody had any idea we were going to get that much rain. So all that water's going into Mill Creek from that drainage,
Yes.
seeping in the ground.
So I've been kind of involved, I'm a diver also, so we've been going to Alachua Sink for decades. And we kept noticing all the runoff from that ever expanding intersection there, right? All the development around it. And we started, Pete Button, who's my partner in Carson Environmental Services, we started basically mentioning this to anybody we'd run into, any agency people. Well, they finally got out there and did something. But what the treatment, the retention basins they have treat the intersection around I-75, they don't treat the area where this subdivision is going to go, or this development. And the people, the county commission, or the city commission in Alachua seems to be under an illusion that the runoff from that thing is going to go into these retention basins. It would have to go downhill into Mill Creek and then uphill to the retention basin. So they need to be disabused of that notion. Yeah. Yeah, my gut feeling on this thing is it needs to be looked at very, very carefully. It's got the potential to pollute a lot of groundwater.
Thank you, appreciate that.
And in this path is our own well field.
Yep.
our own potable water supply wells, right?
Yeah.
Not very far,
Right.
because I guess the Memorial Field would be the closest well.
Well, it's all pretty connected, so that's my concern, too.
Mm-hmm.
So, Madam Attorney, in terms of how do we approach this as delicately as possible, so as not to appear like we're trying to pick a fight with anybody, how do we, you guys will come back to us with,
Some options, and
Okay.
I'm trying to quickly put together some context clues for you all. They make reference to Terra Forest final plat item on city's August 26, 2024 agenda, and they make mention of it being a hearing. It's very likely a quasi-judicial hearing, and so you're able to essentially be a third-party intervener when you're affected. So we very rarely have third-party interveners because you don't have someone outside who's coming in and saying this is going to affect me adversely. My understanding from a quick reading is that that is exactly what Alachua County is doing, is they're entering themselves essentially as a third party in this. If you view each quasi-judicial hearing as its own mini litigation, they're essentially entering themselves in as a party. I did just check the City of Alachua's agenda for the 26th, and it is not on there.
okay.
And for the final plat to be approved, it would need to be on there, to give proper notice and whatnot.
Right.
So I imagine that perhaps when they received this letter, they pulled the item to kind of regroup. So if you all would provide us with the instruction, we're happy to kind of circle the wagons and figure out what's going on and what the status of this final plat approval is and bring that back to you at the next meeting.
Okay. Gentlemen, is that?
If we were to go ahead and fire off a letter like that, we could always pull it back later without issue if we determine that we're okay, correct?
I just think at that point, you just wouldn't show up to the quasi-judicial, you just wouldn't send a representative to the quasi-judicial hearing.
So then should we go ahead, just in case there is something on the 26th, should we go ahead and throw something in there? That way they know our hat's in the ring too?
My only concern is that you all don't know for certain that you're an affected party at this point in time, and I wouldn't want to advise you in getting cross with another city
Sure.
without, true harm and knowledge of it.
I don't know, after that dye test is pretty, I would call that pretty damning evidence.
I'm just an advisor. I
Right,
tell you all
yeah.
that all the time. If you want me to
Right.
do it, we'll
But
do it.
isn't our responsibility for City of High Springs too, as a commission, to protect this situation from happening?
We know anything, I think we can educationally say, anything that goes into that sink is coming to us. Which
Exactly.
I would say that I don't need any more evidence than that to go ahead and, my personal preference would be we fire off a letter just letting them know. And if they get upset about it, well, I'm sorry, that's not their water.
No.
It's ours that it's coming to. And I don't think that they would intentionally do anything to hurt us. And I know that they don't think that we think that, but I understand everybody wants to grow, but this isn't I would rather them not do it there.
Does USGS or the Water Management District or anybody, one of those regulatory type agencies, do they have regional groundwater contour maps that would show clearly?
They're called
Potentiometric surface maps are, yeah. So that shows, you're going to see the arrows on those maps
Yeah.
in terms of the direction it's going to be going.
It's coming this way.
Obviously, it's going to come to the river. It's going to flow this way, so.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that evidence might be good backup for the letter from the attorney, just to show we are right here in the path, and this is not a study we did. This is, USGS's or whoever's. That might be good backup to have.
Yeah, that letter from Alachua County, I don't think it has any really legal standing. It's something but it's pressure on the Alachua or the city commission down there. In a letter from you guys, we kind of emphasize the point that this is a really sensitive feature here in the
Yeah.
county. It's the most sensitive sinkhole feature we have. And it really is going to require extraordinary oversight for the water management off of this development.
I think it offers us the opportunity just to open up a dialogue.
Yeah.
You know.
And they're not going to think that we're
I hope not. I
angry
mean,
or anything like that. We're just concerned.
Right.
Which we're allowed to be.
so gentlemen, we're directing the attorney's office then to go ahead and draft some data in a letter.
I'm in for that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And then at the next meeting, that letter would be available for us to read, or?
I guess that's my question for you all, given that, and I don't see it on the 26th agenda, but I
Right.
understand Commissioner Grunder's
Right.
point of God forbid. Are we authorized to then send said letter without your prior reviewing it? I guess that's my concern, because obviously there's no way for us, the math doesn't work out on that.
Right.
So what is y'all's preference?
Would it be more advisable to ask that your office go on the 26th and sit in the audience with direction from us to advise them or tell them if it does come up in the 26th that we intend on we're drafting this letter as we speak and we intend on doing it and you're here representing us? Would that be more feasible or more advisable than go ahead and just firing a letter off?
The letter, I do want to clarify that the letter gives Alachua County standing to essentially participate in the hearing. So it would be, typically your quasi judicial hearings are the staff speaks, the applicant speaks, and then we would have a slot for third-party interveners, and we typically skip over that because we don't have that. So they have essentially the same floor space, if you will, as the applicant and staff. So it grants you a higher, I don't want to say priority because all testimony is testimony, but it really does give you a different footing than just being someone that comes up from the crowd and comments. So that's essentially what Alachua County has done, is they've kind of stuck their foot in the door and saying, we're going to participate in this. So I guess as I'm sitting here mulling it over, I mean, realistically, we could enter ourselves as a third-party intervener, and then we could withdraw ourselves as a third-party intervener.
Well, I think it's time to be a third-party intervener.
So if it's the desire of the commission that letter go out, essentially just stating that we feel as though we're an affected party and we're claiming third-party intervener status prior to that 26th meeting, just in case. And obviously, we'll be in contact with, I believe Marion Rush is the city of Alachua's attorney.
Okay.
Just to find out whether or not, is that agenda item happening on the 26th? Is it not? And then we can provide an update.
So who would be, with this county letter, who's going to represent Alachua County? Would you know that? Was it be one of these people on this
If I
letterhead?
had to guess, Sylvia Torres is the county attorney. I don't know if she herself will appear solo. I imagine that they have a pretty extensive planning staff. I imagine that planning staff would probably come out as well. So they've got some deep resources over there. So it may not just be her. It may be multiple people that they deem experts to come testify at this hearing.
I'm game for whatever protects the citizens here in our water, whichever direction you deem fit, whether the letter or representation or just a phone call in case something comes up. But we do need to be aware of what direction is going to go from that point on, I would imagine.
I would be okay, as Vice Mayor is, with the Attorney's Office sending a letter post haste, just saying we intend to
We're aware
declare
of
ourselves
it.
as a third-party intervener, and then we can iron out any more details
Sure.
potentially later.
Sure. I mean,
but-
they did a very nice job in their letter of kind
Yeah.
of laying out their argument. I don't even know that we need to get into what our argument is. I think we can just say we're an affected party. We're an
Right.
affected third-party intervener. So it gives city staff kind of a time to explore how this is going to affect us. It gives the city attorney's office some time to work with city staff to determine that. And then appear at the hearing and argue in favor of the city of High Springs and how it's going to potentially negatively impact the city of High Springs.
I agree with the letter.
Gentlemen,
Yes.
you okay with that? Okay.
If you want to just solidify it with a motion, that way for the record you have,
I make a motion that we have the attorney's office draft a letter letting the city of Alachua know that we will be a third-party intervener.
Second.
Do we need to take a vote on that? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you, gentlemen. We
Thank you, sir.
appreciate you coming so
Appreciate it.
much.
Yes. No, of course.
All right. Yo, no, please come.
Good evening, Rudy Rothsiden. I'm a citizen of Alachua, and I came to also speak about what they're talking about. But first, I would, a couple of things I'd like to say. Friday after the storm, I had an issue with electric. I couldn't get over to disconnect. Finally got them disconnected. We got it fixed. I want to just extend my appreciation to your city inspector, Mr. Alligood. He came over on his day off. He had his wife in the truck. They were obviously going somewhere that wasn't to be where I'm supposed to be, where I was at. But he said, you know what, it's more important for me to get one of our citizens, your citizens, hooked up with power in one of my rental properties. And Tammy also came into the office, sent the email out, and I greatly appreciate that. I was also, from that storm, doing a lot of cleanup in some other properties I have, and I stacked a lot of debris up, and your city came by with a big picker-upper and grabbed it, and just thank you for that. Also, I'm a soccer coach here in the city, And I am really excited about the hire of Jennifer Appleby. She's a wonderful, hardworking person. I know her very well from City of Alachua, and I'm happy that you guys made the hire of her as well. Back to what I want to talk about with the sink. It is not going to be on the 26th agenda in Alachua. If it was, there wouldn't be proper, it would almost be a good thing if you're against the development, because there wasn't proper notification, anything that way. So it's not going to be on the agenda 26th. They're going to have to receive construction plans and such, and so the time frame of it is going to be pushed out. The county's going to be doing a presentation on the 24th, I believe, on September on the matter. There was also mention, so basically, it's water, what we're talking about here, and potential pollution of our water and what that would mean for this whole area. We are land rich, and it's health is wealth, land is wealth, right? Once it's developed, it's gone. But once it's with raw land, we are very rich that way in this area. And we, in my mind, we want to be very, very conscious of who is going to be developing in our area. I know we can't choose who develops, but Alachua changed their codes. The person who was developing it put forth the largest text amendment change to the land development codes in the city of Alachua that basically allowed for national builders like Horton and Lennar to move into our area. They made them post-size samples of lot sizes. They made their setbacks even smaller. They took away surety bonds. So there's no surety bond on this construction site that they're planning, right? A surety bond is a bond that the builder comes in and says, this is insurance for what I'm going to do. And they typically, if they don't live up what they're going to do, that bond is there to protect the people. That has been taken away. I'm just very concerned about this. This project is going to be a 10-year project. Who knows what the economy is going to do in 10 years? If they get part of the way through it, and then all of a sudden the economy dips, what's going to happen to that property, and what shape is going to be left? Their argument was that the water that's going to come out of their retention ponds is going to be cleaner. That's their argument. Okay, that's what their representative JB of the. I'm sorry here. I don't know Kim. Their engineer is claiming that. So also there was mention to the project, the wetlands project that was done by the DOT, collecting the runoff from I-75 and kind of behind Sonny's. There's a set of ponds that were done there. That only collects 13 of the 127 Swalette depressions in that area. The rest of that development is northeast of that, and it all flows from the northeast to the southwest. And so none of that is going to hit Mill Creek first, to the sink, and this way. None of that is going to be protected by that project. Or I won't say none, I'll say very minimal is what I would say. And I champion the city of Alachua for doing that project with DOT, EPA. I love it. We need those things to protect our waters. But also, sorry, the county is involved, and they have a wealth of information. There was a lawsuit that they put forth against the Walmart project. They have Boku's information. They put so many stipulations on Walmart for them to build, and that includes, not only was there had to be impervious, their fertilizer had to be covered, there had to be impervious parking areas, there had to be the limitations they put on them were incredible, and none of those are on this property. None of those are on this property. They actually gave them a special exception. City of Alachua gave them a special exception to put retention ponds in a conservation area. They are, in my eyes, bending over backwards for the mighty dollar. And I hope what you're doing, I believe, is what is right, and putting yourself in the mix as a third party affected. And thank you for doing so. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
David Lynch. I gave each person 2 pieces of paper marked number 1 and number 2. Let's look at number 1. Read where it says DUI. This is stating that the number of traffic fatalities from marijuana and from alcohol are almost the same. I was present when the commission voted not to allow Alice's Parkside Restaurant to be converted to a vape shop. Mr. Miller and Mr. Bloodsworth were not on the commission at that time. So the commission refused to allow a vape shop, they refused to allow marijuana, but they allow High Springs Brewing to use the High Springs name to promote alcoholic beverages. This seems to be a contradiction. You're allowing alcohol to be promoted, but you're not allowing marijuana. Moving on to number 2, this is a letter to the editor from Emily Matthews. Emily Matthews has a column in Alachua County Today entitled Emily's Corner. And this is speaking to the same development that these other men were speaking to. She's speaking against it, the same development. So read the area that's underlined in red. Emily Matthews is speaking against that same development.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
Good evening, Rose Castro, resident of High Springs. I reached out a couple weeks ago to the mayor regarding some issues with trucks on Main Street and over on Post Springs Road, and she suggested I reach out to the Department of Transportation, Lake City office. I visited them earlier this morning, and I spoke with Jesse Sutton, and he was extremely receptive. He said that he had previously had conversations with Mr. Thomas Henry, Public Works, and he's willing to put up the signs and help find an alternate route for these trucks. Basically, he said it's up to the commission to let him know that they want to establish a truck route to kind of bypass 182nd and Main Street, and that he would be happy to help with that with signage. He also mentioned that enforcement would, fall on us, on the city and the police to enforce that, but he's very open and willing to work with us to take care of that situation. I've personally witnessed trucks on Main Street turning onto 27 and getting on that sidewalk. On one occasion, there was a family on the crosswalk, and there was skid marks from the truck. And these truckers are really doing the best they can, but it's just, there's no space. We really can't coexist in that small space. And if we want to get, revitalize business in Main Street, having these huge trucks, and it's like scores of them every day, it's not really conducive to what we're trying to accomplish. And also on Post Springs Road, it's the only road that takes people to the Springs. I looked up the numbers. 2023 said 1 million visitors to High Springs, which I'm assuming most were going to the Springs. So why are we having all these trucks traverse 182nd where we have all these, visitors and whatnot? So just wanted to put it out there, give the message, and I have his contact information in case anybody wants to reach out to him for that.
Could you give that to the city clerk and she can get it to the Public Works Director as well?
course.
That would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Madam Mayor and Council, I'm Jerry Sandsgrant, kind of new here, moved a couple years ago to Florida. Beautiful city. Thank you for the work you're doing. I just have one request, and possibly after a large storm, if we could have maybe one more debris pickup. I went for my walk this morning like I do, and there's still probably half the houses in our neighborhood that still have a lot of debris. It's starting to decompose and not smell good and kind of capture unwanted critters. So I don't know if that's possible to maybe after storm add one or two more debris collections.
Is that something that you want to, Kevin, is that something you could speak to, or? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Commissioners. I too am a cave diver like Tom Morris, and Brian started cave diving in 2003, and I learned right here in this county, in these environs, and I've seen the degradation over the past 21 years. Tom's been diving, he was pretty modest, he's been diving for a half a century, so he's really seen the degradation in terms of life, the flora and fauna, the water quality. When you're decompressing in a shallow dive 20 years ago, you could take your regulator out of your mouth and sip a little bit of the water to refresh yourself. We don't do that anymore because of the degradation of the water quality. Very encouraged by your interest in becoming a third-party intervener there. It's very exciting. I wanted to bring another aspect of the water quality, and that's the tourism dollars. I'm the current chairman of the National Speleological Society, the cave diving section. We have about 800 members. But we have members all around the world because there are caves all around the world. A lot of people come from all over the place, Europe, Germany, Asia, China, dozens of countries around the world come here for the cave diving, to learn it, to come back year after year to dive it. Huge impact. And then other people tube, they snorkel, they kayak, they paddleboard. But I wanted to put a marker down for the cave divers, the economic impact. A typical cave diver has somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000 investment in equipment and training. And a lot of that money comes here and stays here in terms of instruction, lodging, visits to restaurants and shopping and such. I think those are my main points. I thank you for your interest in this, and look forward to if there's anything that we can do to keep you informed on the developments, we'd be glad to help you with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Cassandra Davis, 18924 Northwest 250th Street. I came this evening with two thank yous. I want to thank you for the Douglas Community Center reopening, grand ribbon cutting and grand opening. The people that we had to come to the reunion were thrilled with the building. After 68 years, it's been restored into a Douglas community, into a community that was about going down, but that has brought life back to that community. So just want to thank you on behalf of the citizens, the Douglas School Reunion people, and those citizens around. My second thank you is to the Public Works, because I live over off of 243rd County, 246th Street back to 253rd Street. All the debris from Tropical Storm Debbie has been picked up. They cut it. It looks good. And I just want to thank the Public Works for keeping that up. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else? Oh, come back, come back.
That's right. I want to thank, I'm sorry, got excited here. I want to thank Jennifer A and Jennifer C. They did an excellent job of getting us ready for that ribbon cutting and grand opening. Thank you
Yes,
so
they
much,
did.
Jennifer.
Thank you.
My name's Janet Evans. I wanted to follow up on some comments last meeting where we talked about the budget. One of the things that was suggested was there was discussion regarding the budget management. One of the points that was made was about good fiscal management, including not just making budget cuts wherever we could, but also bringing in revenue. And I wanted to follow that with this point. I think that it is important to focus on bringing in new revenue without investing a lot of money to do so. I'd like to give 3 examples of mistakes that, in my opinion, were made. On the precipice of this would be bringing in some revenue for our city. One was the Bridlewood development, talking about all of the tax revenue that the city would be receiving from all those houses coming in, and you weigh the pros and the cons on that, and I don't think there's much discussion, but that was one of the things that was one of the arguments made for the development. Another one was the large tax revenue that High Springs would be receiving from the Duke Energy power plant. It was, that we were going to be getting this $500,000 tax revenue. We're not even sure where that's going, but this is another thing that was, this is going to be good for us. It's going to bring in this revenue, and that wasn't such a great thing for our city overall either. A third one was purchasing the rescue boat, thinking, geez, we might have an opportunity to use it. We purchased the heavy rescue truck, thinking that we were going to be getting money from the county every year by servicing up in the highway locations, the freeway locations. And now they've purchased a truck of their own, which is great, but had we even been keeping that big truck, that would have then been cut in half too. So we're making these purchases, these decisions, thinking we're going to be getting some revenue back, and those ideas are falling flat. And we're not even going to touch the idea that the big truck doesn't meet the needs for our city. But it was an idea that was proposed that this is going to be good for us. There was also the canoe outpost. We got that. We're thinking, we're going to be doing all this stuff with the canoes, and we get there and the equipment and stuff, and it's really so deteriorated. We're not actually able to follow through with the ideas that, we're going to be able to do this. So I just want to say that not all potential revenue sources need to be tied to an expenditure. I know that a couple of years ago, a number of folks from the community suggested we look into annexing property and being able to gain revenue from that. There were a number of ideas presented that were ways that wasn't going to cost our city money in order to bring the money in. And I would just like to suggest that I think we should really put a lot of focus on that. I'd also like to welcome the commissioners to bring in their ideas too of what we might be able to do as a city to bring in that revenue. And again, looking more at what can we bring in and without having to put a lot of money out there.
Thank you.
I do have a comment towards that. No, just about what you said about revenue. In Public Works, we have a sign shop. Have we ever thought about, with that sign shop, selling signs to the other surrounding cities? Because right now, nobody is actually able to operate the sign shop because we have nobody trained for that. Okay.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. Commissioners, any other comments? All right, we are moving on to our one new business item. Discuss, consider, and act on Resolution 2024-Q. Do you want to read this, Madam Attorney?
I would be happy to. Madam Mayor, this is resolution number 2024-Q, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of High Springs, Florida, granting with appropriate conditions and safeguards a conditional use permit as authorized by the City of High Springs Land Development Code pursuant to an application, CUP 24-02, by the property owner, providing for a conditional use to permit an expansion of an existing mini-storage facility to add an additional 266 mini-storage units within a commercial C3 zoning district as provided for in Table 2.02.01 of the Land Development Code, providing for revocation of the conditional use permit, repealing all resolutions in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Okay. Christie? Good evening.
So as she said, this is a conditional use. It's located at Total Storage. They're an existing storage facility, and they are wanting to expand. So this is basically giving them the permission to expand. It's a conditional use. So on this, it did go to the plan board on Monday, and they had a couple of items that they wanted as conditions. So on your dais is an updated version, which has those two items. So depending on how you guys vote on it, if you include, if you pass the version in front of you, it is the ones with plan board's recommendations. If you don't pass it with those, we would go back and edit it. The two items that the plan board talked about were resolving traffic issues caused by the front gate being too close to the road. They were worried that there was going to be a stacking problem. So basically, people would be trying to enter. That gate's really close to 441. It would cause a backup, cause issues, unsafe conditions. So they left it open-ended because they didn't want to specify the fix for it. They want to explore fixes that could help. So something like moving the gate back, moving the gate to another location, working with DOT to put in a turn lane, anything that would help with the traffic issue there. So they included that one. The second one they wanted was to install an emergency access only onto Railroad Avenue. The worry was with one entry in and one out, that people could get bottlenecked in there if there was some sort of emergency situation. So they wouldn't want it to be open all the time. It would be emergency access only. We don't want all those trucks and things, the trailers going out onto Railroad. Those were the two that they recommended. You all did send me a comment from a citizen that was concerning the proximity to the well. So the code that we have in effect is that there is no development within 300 feet of a well. And anything within that 300 to 500 range, there's limitations on the uses that you can have. So it has to do with no animal feedlots, things like that. There's a quick, 1 through 7, things like mines, wastewater treatment plants, excavation activities, things like that. So if you look at your conceptual plan, they have nothing that is being disturbed within that 300 feet. They do have the shallow drainage areas, drainage activities that are right outside of it. I did reach out to their engineer after you all received that comment for further clarification. He did email me back. And the owner should be here tonight to answer any additional questions on that part. But he said that, as you know, all of the construction that we propose is outside of the 300-foot radius. These shallow retention basins are within 500-foot radius, will not intercept the water table, and will be dry. So it appears to meet the code that was referenced in the email. The Regional Planning Council has also reviewed this conceptual document and did have them make certain changes that they had to include notes that they wouldn't have hazardous wastes on site, storage of explosive materials, things like that. So currently, I don't see any issues specific to that code. But if you'd like to talk to the applicant, they should be in the audience tonight.
Gentlemen, do you have questions?
Good evening, Commission.
Good evening.
Josh Blackford, owner and local resident. I just wanted to come up and give a brief history just to add to the conversation. Spent my whole life here, enjoyed, all of the springs. Since I've been 8 years old, I've been getting orange cream milkshakes.
I'm so sorry. I was not paying attention. I was looking at the map. This is quasi-judicial. I have to swear everybody in.
Okay.
Would you just raise your right hand, please? I'm so sorry to have cut you off. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Well, I've enjoyed this area for my whole life, lived in High Springs for a period of time. Definitely respect the area, respect the waterways, respect the springs. I understand what they mean to, this area and to our citizens. With that in mind, I've been in construction for 20 years. We found this property in a very poor condition, and since that time have put a lot into it to clean it up. There was, things that weren't legal on the site that we've had to already invest to clean up the area, remove old illegal trailers and such. I don't know if you're from this area and familiar with that property and what it was before we got it, but it was our intention to beautify it, bring it up to code, and that's our intention moving forward. We have hired a very reputable, well-informed engineer in Joe Montalto that has experience in Alachua County for many years, as well as with many storage facilities. The existing facility out there already had 36 units on it that, again, needed to be cleaned up, and we're just looking to add to that. In reference to the first question of stacking, we've already met with DOT prior to even coming to you guys to ask them these questions. They've already demanded that we move our gate back, which is going to happen in the planning phase. So we will be coming, we're too close to the highway as it is, as well as many other citizens along that road. However, we're developing, so we're going to have to meet the new code, which I totally understand. And we're going to move that back, create an area for people to come in. We've been watching our traffic flow based on 36 units. I have cameras up. I document everything on a regular basis so that we're familiar with the traffic flow and where it will go once we reach the amount of units that we're looking to. In addition to that, we also will expand in a phase-by-phase fashion once we get started. We're not just going to drop 200 and something units out there. It depends on the market, the economy, the neighborhoods that may or may not get built around the area. Again, I'm a local citizen. I'm not a big box store. I'm not D.R. Horton. I'm not, Lennar. I don't have the kind of cash they have to come in and change codes and change minds. I've got to work within what the current codes are, and that's what we're looking to do. We're not looking to buck the system or argue about, what the regulations are. That is why we've already met with DOT. We've already put our plan together to stay outside of the 300-foot. Within the 500-foot, the only regulation is that we don't intercept the water table. So there'll be plenty of testing done to guarantee where that's at to make sure we do not do that. And again, moving forward, we'll have to come to you again with the further development and design of the project to approve at a later date, which we will do with Joe Montalto to make sure everything not only meets DOT, but it also meets the River Management District that will be associated with the project as well.
Gentlemen?
I do agree. It looks a heck of a lot better than what it looked before. You did everything we asked you to do last time, and I appreciate you working with us so much. I really do.
In your planning stages, the retention pond behind, I guess it's still a school maybe? Is it like a private daycare, the house right next to?
It's a daycare next door that we owned, renovated and sold to them as well.
Okay, so it's still acting as a daycare?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Will y'all have any land, bushes, trees to kind of?
There will be a buffer. There's
Buffer
also,
there?
that's also a code. There's so much of a buffer that we have to provide around different zoning.
Okay.
There's some properties out there that are being used as commercial that are zoned residential. So we're going to work within what the residential confines of those properties are. And so that will be also identified as a part of the development and planning process that we go through when we put our plans together. So we'll identify those. A lot of that area we don't want to disturb. That's already there. Where we can, and again, based on the water studies and the flow with the existing grade is, that's how we'll design the retention.
And same with Railroad Avenue, because, a lot of people live back there.
Yes, sir.
Subdivisions.
We don't
try
even
keep
want to
a buffer.
disturb that. To be honest, when we first came, we were told no, because I wanted to put a gate there and was told no. And we moved forward with designing our property to not use Railroad Ave. Now, if they want an emergency exit, a hurricane's coming, and everybody wants to come get something out of there, then, I can understand that, and we'll just prop the gate open for those couple days. If that's, what we need to do, then we're open for that as well.
I mean, I like the idea of y'all having a gate that exit out that way from 441, but I also understand the citizens, that's a narrow road. It's pristine, close, trees and all. So, yeah, emergency exit, obviously, but, yeah, not entering it and exiting out of there with Edgemore and other folks that are living back there.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate you taking the concern to keep it
Yes, sir.
kind of a wild space, so to speak, around it.
Gentlemen, anything else? I've got a couple of questions on this figure right here that kind of shows the 300-foot radius. It's kissing right up against the edge of where it's going to be developed and the retention ponds here to the south. I see the larger one to the north and then these smaller ones to the south. In our LDC, there's also, as was pointed out in the email that we got, a second 100-foot secondary cone of influence. My biggest problem here, my biggest concern, is how close this is to the potable water wells for the city, for our city. I assume that you would pave all of this. That's more impervious surface. More likely that you're going to have sinkholes opening up around the perimeter. You've got a 500-foot mark here, but it doesn't really show me where that circle comes through. Is it not possible? I don't know where that is, but how would that impact you to also adhere to the 600-foot radius in terms of being able to expand?
600 foot as far as,
From the well field, from the wells.
which regulation, though, the retention pond?
Or like you've got the retention ponds just up against the 300 feet. Are you able to move that back to include the secondary cone of influence? Because, like with the storm we just had, I ran into Jason in the parking lot and we had an issue with one of our new wells. Unfortunately, the reality of in High Springs with the karst geology that's here is sinkholes are just a way of life.
I agree.
So
We do a lot of
I'm
building in New
concerned with this potential development being so close to our potable water supply that a sinkhole could be catastrophic. Not only maybe to the wells, but to the actual to the actual water that we're pulling out of the ground. How would it impact your plans if you were to also adhere to the 600-foot secondary cone of influence?
That would be a pretty big impact, but
Mhm.
I won't sit here and say we couldn't study it.
Mhm.
I definitely think it's due diligence for us to find exactly where that 300 is to make sure we are
Right.
away
Yeah,
from
this
that and
drawing
not
doesn't
right
look
on
like
top
it's
of
to
it.
scale. So if we
Again,
had
yes, this is an overlay of an existing aerial to
Okay.
get, through a couple phases that we didn't even know we needed to get through, to be
Right,
honest, with
right.
zoning and special use. It was already mini storage. I figured, hey, I'll buy it and expand mini storage, but
Mhm.
apparently you can't just do that. So
Yeah.
there was a couple of the cleared lots that were already cleared and being used for storage and tanks and, all kinds of stuff out there,
Mhm.
which I know you guys didn't approve. Somebody just was doing it illegally. So when we took it over, we was like, oh, we're going to clean this up and just put mini storage here. But yeah, we've been through this process and knowing to get to this stage, we had to just do a very, very conceptual overlay to not put a lot of time and money and effort into an exact design until we get the comments from DOT, from you guys, and from anyone else that is concerned. So now, after this vote, our push would be to work with Joe very closely to identify all of these concerns, develop a set of drawings that everybody can review, comment on again, and then move forward from that point. And, other than me saying, you have my word to look into that the best we can and make sure we're being, as proactive to identify those concerns and work them into the development, that's, I think, what I could say as of tonight.
And is there a possibility, I know that, making this all asphalt certainly makes construction easier, makes maintenance easier, but it also, like I said, is an impervious surface that we're putting right next to and it impacts the recharge in the area, everything. Would there be a possibility, depending on what you decide construction-wise, to leave it as grass?
I'm sure there's some areas we could leave as grass, and to the other comment about the buffers, around the existing, there's certain buffers we have to have that have to be landscaping, not asphalt, not concrete. There could be some, idea there that we, orient the building such that the water flows away from the wells to where behind it we don't have any impervious surface. So again, during the development or the design phase, we could definitely consider that and have Joe rework a few different layouts and see what would work the best.
Another question I had, just in terms of trying to think outside the box, and this might be a Christie question. These are all one-story units right now.
Yes, ma'am.
In order to get your desired capacity, if it were to happen, could they be a second story? Or is that just cost prohibitive?
It's pretty cost prohibitive, and different design.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm
and
just
second
trying to-
story units,
I think if we can minimize the horizontal footprint, I don't know if that would be allowed by code or not, Christie. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I guess what I would really like to see, if possible, is a drawing to scale that showed the overlay of the 600-foot secondary cone of influence to see, and then see maybe what kind of unique designs we could do in terms of minimizing the impervious surface within that cone.
yeah, I'll have to look for that verbiage. I haven't seen that one, so.
Okay.
With that being said, with the drainage, I'm assuming, and of course, we know this is preliminary drawings, but there would be drains where the water would be off the asphalt draining to that central biggest retention pond, correct?
Yes,
To
sir.
try to draw that water away from maybe our water source.
Yeah, that's the idea, because again, we don't want to impact the groundwater. We want to flow it, the other direction away from the well. So that would be the intention. Again, we haven't done a study on how big that needs to be. We've tried to identify areas where we could collect water around the site. But again, that would be something during the design phase that we would keep in mind for sure.
Is there room for this retention pond to be bigger? Do y'all own the property off to the south of that retention pond?
We do not.
Do not, okay. That's where
Not
I
at
was
this
thinking
time.
maybe a bigger retention pond.
Yeah.
But then that would be within the 300-foot cone, primary cone,
Okay,
if it were to the south, any farther south than what they have on their figure now.
gotcha. I'm just looking farther here at the water source.
Right, right.
Do we know how many feet that is from our building where our well is to their closest storage unit? Do you know that offhand?
That I don't know offhand. That's what I was saying, is we probably could do a survey during the design phase to guarantee that. And that's what, I was saying we could do.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not a hard no on this, but I'm with the mayor, and I'd just like to see more of a two scale, but I think we can definitely do something with you on this. I think you picked a really great night to be on talking about water.
Right.
You got everybody terrified right now. They started this thing up. I wouldn't approve a drain for nothing right now. Does it touch water? I don't want no part of it. So, it was a terrible night for this, but it's still educational. But I don't think any of us are against it, because you've done everything you said you would do before. We know you're a man of your word based on just the interactions we've already had. So I think just work with us a little bit more, and I think we can get to where you want to be, as long as we all get comfortable.
Absolutely. And my intention is, again, being a local citizen, I don't want the big box ones
Right.
coming in here, even, because if they build 3 stories, they're going to take all the footprint anyway.
Yep.
And have 3 stories. So, and you're seeing that in Gainesville right now, you're seeing it in Jonesville, and we get calls all the time, trying to buy ours, and we don't want to sell. This is my livelihood. We've scraped our pennies together to have American dream, and I'm hoping that's it, and we want to, follow the rules. And I feel like I've read the rules, and I know what the rules are. And I have engineers. I've met with DOT. We know Suwannee River Management District. We know how to put the design together properly to follow those rules. I'm up for listening to the concerns of the citizens, of the commission, and making sure we incorporate some of those ideas into the planning. However, we can't really move forward to the planning phase, without an investment. And that is why, I need to, a local guy that owns his own business, I need to know that if I go down that road to paying for a design and different renditions and surveys and studies on water tables and stuff like that, I'm going to be able to build something here. Now I'm up for presenting that design to you guys at a later date and kind of hearing your comments and making tweaks, to those boundaries if possible. But I would really like to see that this, use would be approved for the land that's there.
Do we have any questions or comments from the audience on this?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
if anybody's going to speak on this, will you just raise your right hand now and I'll swear y'all in at the same time? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Commissioners, Sue Weller. My concern, as you indicated, Madam Mayor, was the closeness to our wells as well. Our regs, as I read them, basically say that if this is prohibited between 300 feet and 600 feet to have a percolation pond. I don't have a problem at all with the development, but I would request that anything that you approve tonight include that any retention pond or percolation pond, whatever you want to call it, is within outside of that boundary, of that 600 feet.
That's a good point that you make, though, in terms of the definition of what's a percolation pond versus a dry basin or a wet basin. You know, our LDC says a percolation pond. So, Christy, can you give us any more definition in terms of, does that include a retention pond, a basin?
So I didn't find anything in the definition section specific to percolation pond.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have to defer to an actual engineer that has more background in
Okay.
retention and things. But my understanding was the percolation pond was like a wet pond
Mhm.
that has standing water in it. But I'm definitely no engineer, so
Mhm.
we need to get an actual professional opinion on it.
Mm-hmm.
And the other concern I had is the statement that to make sure that it doesn't impact upon our aquifer there. The rule is 600 feet. So whatever
Yeah, for
come
the
up with,
pond,
it
it
has to
is.
be,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned
Yeah.
anyway, it has to be beyond the
Could it
600
be
feet.
designed with only one basin at the north? I don't know.
Well, and that's what I'll add is, I mean, again, we're kind of, I feel like mixing two different approvals. Tonight's approval is, can the land be used for this? Another approval, I believe, would come in the future, that the design meets the code and criteria of that area. So tonight is not a debate on, are we gonna, build within the 300, because we know we can't do that, right? We're looking to say, can the property that I own expand the existing mini storage and be used for that? At a later date, I'll come and prove to you with the design that says, I'm not gonna break the rules, right? If I can
No,
put
I
it
understand what
easily.
you're saying,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely. Madam City Attorney, is that an appropriate course of action to approve the special use permit, or what is it?
Conditional use
The
permit.
conditional use permit, consumptive use, that's at the Wellfield. With the conditions that, when we got to the design phase, that staying within the 300 and 600-foot cones of influence, those requirements are met.
Sure, so if you look at your resolutions tonight, and this is typically what I like to point you all to when you're making conditions and approving quasi-judicial, if you look at the very bottom, it starts with the letter A and goes through H. Those are gonna be your standards tonight for approving a conditional use permit. So if you feel as though that the applicant has satisfied and proved with competent and substantial evidence that he meets each of those conditions, then it would be proper to approve the conditional use permit. If you find for whatever reason that he has not met one of those conditions, then you could either implement a condition that would satisfy whatever subsection he hasn't, satisfied, or you could deny it if you feel as though that no condition could be placed upon it that would bring it into compliance.
So could we just modify condition H that says the proposed condition use will not interfere with or adversely affect the health, safety, or welfare of the surrounding community area, to include the compliance with the LDC in terms of the primary and secondary cone of influence from the wells?
So you could say that you're going to approve this CUP with the condition that you just
Okay.
stated, based upon the fact that as it sits right now, it doesn't meet that standard set forth in your code, is how I would suggest phrasing it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an issue with this particular use for this site. I don't think any of us do. It's just making sure that we're protecting the drinking water supply.
So when you make your motion, whoever makes a motion in whatever direction, just be very specific on what you're doing, why you're doing it, and under, what you're relating it to back to the code would be my recommendation.
Okay. Also, in terms of making sure that you're aware of ex parte conversation, I went to the plan board meeting on Monday.
Okay. Did you
Since this is-
participate?
I did not. I listened.
Did that influence your decision at all tonight?
No. They did a great job, and two of those gentlemen are here. They asked great questions. They did a really good job.
Gentlemen, while we're on the subject, did any of the rest of you have any ex parte conversations with anybody about this?
I did not.
Excellent.
You're aware of the email that we got that I
other
sent to
than the-
Christie. We did get an email from a citizen specifically calling out this part of the LDC. so-
Okay, I didn't know about it until you had just mentioned it.
Yep,
And
yep.
it's fair for you all to say that of the 5 of you, none of you were influenced by that email. You're making your decision tonight based
I am
upon the
not.
evidence that was presented.
That is correct.
I'm sorry. I'm basing my vote on by what I've learned here tonight.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, gentlemen, any other questions or comments?
You know, I'll tell you what, I like it. I like the use of it. I am very concerned about the 300 to 600 foot. I will take you at your word, and I will put those stipulations in there though, but I will make the motion that we approve it with the one that the plan board gave us, with the stipulation on H, and I don't even know how to word that the way you worded it, but give me a little help here. Tag team
With
thing.
making certain that the LDC is being met requirements for the primary and secondary cones of influence as spelled out in the LDC section 4.06.02.
Due to your concerns with its noncompliance with Section H of
Yes, yes,
Excellent.
yes.
That is correct.
Yep.
That is the motion.
I'll
Thank you.
second that.
Do we need a roll call, ma'am? Okay.
Madam Mayor, I apologize, you do have to allow second public comment due to a motion being on the floor.
Okay, any other comments from the audience? Thanks for keeping me honest, I appreciate it. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am.
I can't, it was my first City of High Springs meeting. I can't tell you how welcome it is to see your concern and have your questions and drilling into a topic. It's just so welcomed. Thank you for that. And thank you for your upfrontness, and it's a wonderful thing to see, and I wish it was happening more.
Hey, welcome to High Springs.
Thank
That's how
you.
we do things.
Thank you.
Feel free to move. Stuff for sale. That's how we try to do it at least.
Any other comments? Yes, sir.
Brad Riddle. My only comment is, I appreciate all these cave divers' input here tonight. And of course, a lot of you know I worked at the Murphy Water Plant for 27 years and monitored the aquifer levels and all that. But my question is, and it may be beneficial to everybody, who did that actual video where they dived and went under like Sonny's
Wes
Barbecue
Giles.
and all that?
Yeah, that was Wes.
You did that?
Oh, and
Well, I'd like to know where I could get a copy of that, because I've watched it multiple times at the water plant. Is it?
You can go down to the Springs Institute, they have
They
a copy
have
of
it?
it there. The
Okay,
water,
awesome.
water's journey, West
Anyway, if
Water's
none of
journey.
y'all have ever seen it, I
Oh, yeah.
encourage you to watch it.
Yep, yep.
You know what I got out of that? I got caught speeding in the Branford one day. And he spotted all the dive gear in the car. He said, "You're a diver, eh?" And I said, "Yeah. Did you ever see that movie? They show it to us in school." And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, I was the guy down there." And he goes back to his car and he comes back and says, "I'm just going to give you a warning."
He probably thought anybody crazy enough to do that was not nobody wanted to write a ticket to. That terrifies me.
Any other comments from the audience?
Do I need to re-second? Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Madam City Clerk, please.
Mayor White?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grunder?
Yes.
Commissioner Bloodsworth?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your participation. All right, gentlemen. An hour and 15 minutes later, we thought 30 minutes with one issue. Madam City Attorney, report and update, ma'am.
The only update I have for y'all is that Mr. Marshall and I are working hand in hand getting the code enforcement officer contract put together. I know he's out on vacation, good for him, he deserves it. So we're pretty close to being done on that one and getting your code enforcement officer set up. I know that y'all
Great.
put the bid out and whatnot, so I just wanted to update you where we were at on that process.
Great, thank you. Mr. Alligood, sir?
Jeremy said I couldn't say anything.
No comments? You need to put your microphone on, please, sir.
Was able to attend the youth council the other night. What a great program that is for those kids, and to see what they're doing with that. So And it sounds like their program they've got coming on the 11th is going to be superb. And we had, some of you had asked for updates. My homework was to contact y'all this week. So Diane has an update on the solar for you guys.
So we did get follow-up information from the county, and they referred to state statute under which solar installations have an 80% exemption on their taxes. So they only have to pay 20% of their property tax. So that is where that differential's coming in. So based on the just value with the 80% reduction at 6.74 mils, we'll get approximately 115,000. If there hadn't been a reduction, it would be 580,000. So that's the information they provided. They were very helpful.
Thank you, ma'am. Nice words. Only nice words, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, if you're like me and you saw what you got in the mail today on your property taxes.
Trim notice.
Yeah. That was definitely a huge hit right there.
Anything else, sir?
I have no more good news.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you, sir. Commissioner Bloodsworth.
Just want to say, great people we got working. I was in the clerk's office this morning. Thought they was having a party in there. They're all happy,
they're
just
having a good
chilling
time.
out and doing a great job.
Yes,
Appreciate
sir.
it.
All right, I am still waiting on my breakdown of the farm market from Diane. And also with the utilities, the farm market doesn't pay the utilities, do it? The pavilion?
Madam Mayor, the pavilion electricity is part of the farmer's market budget. So it comes out
Okay.
of the general fund, but it's under that department.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So my employee of the week this week is Mr. Randy Andrews from Parks and Recs. He was highly recommended by Mr. Alligood.
Very good.
I don't have anything tonight.
Nothing? Sir?
I will say about the trim notice, I talked to a guy the other day who worked down there, and he said that those trim notices were all sent out before we made the decision to bring it down from 699 to 674, so they are not correct. So at least that's some sort of positive.
Yeah, I saw the 699 there.
Yeah,
That's,
yeah, so those are the wrong ones that if we continue through with the dropping of the mill, it will come down from what you received in the mail today. And I just want to say to Jason over there at Public Works, I got so many phone calls after that storm about how happy people were about getting debris out of their yard because they saw what other cities were going through, and there's a lot of guys I work with that we get to drive through a bunch of the other cities all the time and drive around one of them in particular, and they are still not picking up. And our citizens are ecstatic about that, so I really want to commend y'all. I think it was like the next day, y'all were getting stuff out. That is awesome. Thank you for that. We that's a shining example of how special this city is. So awesome work, man.
I had one question for you, Madam Attorney. You may or may not have an answer. I've had a couple citizens ask me about the CDD workshop. Are we going to do that? We promised August, and now it's not almost August anymore.
Well, we knew Jeremy wasn't going to be here tonight,
Right,
so we
okay.
didn't want to do it without him. So
Okay.
I think September is what Jeremy and I are
Okay.
aiming for.
And I mean, if that's something that we can coordinate with the plan board and the commission and at Mr. Walker's direction, not discuss Bridalwood, but educate people about what a CDD is and have people at least have the opportunity to participate in a conversation.
Sure, I think if you did almost like a round, not a round robin style, but you know what I mean, where
Yeah.
it's just kind of a flowing of information, absolutely. I think that's the intention.
Okay.
Because we haven't been contacted by the Bridalwood CDD folks.
I mean, I'd love for them to participate, but if
Sure.
they're not able,
Yeah, they
you
need
know,
to be here on that.
then, you know, at least we can talk about what it is functionally and conceptually and
Sure.
talk to, you know, have people able to ask questions.
Sure, I think September is what
Okay.
is being aimed for.
Okay, okay, great.
Can we try to really have Bridalwood? Because that's what, I mean.
Yeah, that would be nice.
People are going to
Yeah.
be spamming questions home because
Yeah.
that's the first people that's going to do
Yeah.
it. So if we can.
I mean,
maybe
it'd be
reach
great if
out
they
to
were-
them.
would
Yeah, I
come.
have
I'll
no-
give- I think Duck and Jeremy can reach out to them.
Well, and I have no problem reaching out to their attorney,
That'd be great.
Jer.
Okay,
He's
okay.
been very good to work with, so no
Okay.
problem to give him a call.
Yeah, we just really want them to be there because
Sure.
the citizens want to know what they're going to do and
Right.
what their intention is.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, no problem. And as a follow-up to Mr. Alligood's conversation about the Youth Council, they've got all kinds of great stuff going on, and they are a fabulous group. They are having a September 11th ceremony over at the fire station, and it'll be pretty short, but they're gonna just kind of talk about what happened that day, remember it. There's going to be a flag that's going to be retired. Chief Shepherd actually gave us one that was at the police station, so we'll probably retire that one because it's a first responder flag and it'd be kind of appropriate. And they're putting together their program now, and I don't imagine it would be more than 25 minutes, 20 minutes. I think it's going to be at 5 or 5:30 on the 11th. I'm not sure exactly what time. And one of their initiatives, Commissioner Williams, unfortunately Cassandra left, but they had been talking all along about doing tutoring. And I don't know if that's something we could do either at the Civic Center or at the old schoolhouse or at the Douglas Community Center, where one day a week maybe they could just sit there and if kids needed help with their homework, they wanted to help. And I don't know if that's something that, how we would coordinate that. I could certainly be there with them as an adult supervisor because we don't want teenagers by themselves anyway. That's dangerous. But that's something they've been really passionate about. So I don't know how we can get the word out and talk about that with the community, but they would love to do it. Or maybe even over at the library. I don't know. And also the last thing that we talked about at the Youth Council meeting was the idea of having a pancake breakfast fundraiser for our fire department. Knowing that they've got mold issues going on, and I'm certain Chief Peters and Kevin are working on actively getting that remediated as quickly as possible. But there's always a concern that there's not going to be enough budget still. So the kids wanted to do a pancake fundraiser, and I spoke to the ladies at the Women's Club, and they may team up with them to start, just trying to help out. So to be determined when that will be. That's going to be up to the Women's Club, but they want to cook and help out the fire department. So that's all I've got. Anybody have a motion to adjourn?